The city was plunged into the darkness of a stormy evening. The rain fell heavily, each drop hitting the eaves, echoing in the quiet space. The storm not only brought with it thick black clouds, but also brought with it a gloomy feeling, as if the outside world was being pushed back into an unknown, unreachable place. In a hidden corner of the city, where there were no bright lights from shops or dazzling streetlights, there was an ancient building that had stood firm through the centuries, the Linen Library. It was hidden deep in the heart of the city, like a museum of time, a place that kept secrets that had long been forgotten. The ancient marble walls were covered with the dust of time, and the tall bookshelves that reached the ceiling contained thousands of books, maps, and engravings with yellowed pages over the years. The thick wooden door, with its strangely curved grain, was always closed at night, only opened when someone had a reason to enter. In the dim light of candles placed on antique wooden tables, Dr. Anya Sharma stood to give a presentation to a group of archaeologists, researchers, and historians. Anya was one of the most famous archaeologists of her generation. She had just completed a major excavation of an ancient site in Egypt. She was dressed in a black robe, her long hair loose, her face serious and determined. Her heart pounded with pride over her latest discovery, a mysterious artifact, a small wooden box, encrusted with metal and inscribed with ancient symbols that no one could decipher. This box would be the key to unlocking unanswered questions about ancient civilization. Ladies and gentlemen, Anya said in a calm but compelling voice, this artifact is more than just an antique. It holds a deep history, a secret that we are only just beginning to uncover. She placed the wooden box on the table, the candlelight reflecting off the wood, creating a hazy, mysterious image. Argos, Anya's Egyptian hound, lay silently beside her, his blue eyes following every movement in the room. This dog, with its smooth fur and muscular body, always accompanied Anya on every archaeological dig. Argos had a special ability, the ability to sense dangers that humans could not see. Anya had always believed in the dog's abilities, and on nights like these, Argos' presence made her feel more at ease than ever. Anya continued to explain her discoveries, but her attention began to wander. Argos began to act strangely. First, it sniffed the air, its ears perked up, and its eyes became tense. Small, indistinct whines began to come from Argos' throat, making the air in the room heavy. A sense of unease permeated the air, although those around it could not explain the cause. Argos. Anya turned around, her voice soft but filled with worry. What is it, Argos? The dog did not respond, but its actions became even more strange. Argos stood up, pacing around the presentation table, his eyes never leaving the end of the room, where the ancient bookshelves stood still. The dog growled softly, its eyes shining as if it was watching something that only it could see. Anya felt her pulse suddenly increase. She was used to Argos's unusual actions and knew that whenever the dog acted like that, something was threatening. But she could not understand why there was this unease in the air. What's going on? One of the researchers asked, looking around worriedly. Anya remained silent, her eyes still fixed on Argos. She could clearly sense that something was wrong. At this moment, Argos began to approach an old bookshelf, far away from the presentation table. The dog stopped there, standing still, his eyes fixed on a dark spot behind the bookshelf. And then, an eerie silence fell over the room. At that moment, the lights in the room seemed to go out. A dark figure appeared from behind the bookshelf, where Argos had directed his eyes. The figure moved slowly, but menacingly. The entire room fell silent. Everyone held their breath, their eyes focused on that mysterious figure. A cold air seemed to envelop the space. The shadow didn't move quickly, but every step it took made the air in the room heavier, as if the space around it had been suffocated. Everyone in the room fell silent, not daring to breathe heavily. Under the dim light of the candles, the man's figure gradually became clearer, but his face was still hidden by the hood. His steps were slow, as if he was enjoying the fear he caused. Anya felt a distinct change in the air, but couldn't explain what was happening. It was a transformation that she couldn't explain with reason. A sudden feeling of anxiety burst through her, and her gaze immediately turned towards Argos. Argos no longer growled, but its eyes were still bright, staring at the shadow in front of it. The dog stood still, but its body was tense, as if it was ready to pounce at any command. A strange feeling rose in Anya's heart. She felt that the presence of this mysterious man was not a coincidence. Everything seemed to be connecting together. The wooden box, the artifact she had just discovered, And now the appearance of this man. She wondered, did he know something about the box she was holding? Was he part of the secret she could not solve? You are Dr. Anya Sharma, right? The mysterious man's voice rang out, cold and emotionless. He did not rush, just spoke as if he had known everything in advance. Anya was a little startled by the unexpected question, but she still kept her composure, nodding slightly. Yes, I am Anya Sharma. But I do not understand why you are here. The man did not respond immediately, but slowly walked closer, making the atmosphere even more tense. He was only a few steps away from standing right in front of Anya. She felt a shiver run down her spine. It wasn't fear, but a deep unease, as if he wasn't a normal human. A vague urge made her want to run away, but she couldn't. You're holding something that doesn't belong to you, the man said again, his voice deep and slightly ghostly. He didn't look at Anya, but only at the wooden box she was holding. That artifact is the key to an ancient power that humans shouldn't touch. Anya felt her heart tighten. His words were like a slap to her mind. This artifact is the key to an ancient power? She could clearly feel the threat in those words, but couldn't fully understand them. Could it be that this box had a power she had never imagined? This. Anya opened her mouth, but couldn't get the words out. She looked down at the wooden box in her hands. It felt heavy and unfamiliar in her hands. Suddenly, Argos began to growl again, but this time the dog sound wasn't just a warning. It was a whimper of anxiety, as if the dog was facing a huge nightmare that only it could understand. Anya turned to look at Argos, and then her eyes stopped on the dog's eyes that were bright and full of confusion, as if warning her of something terrible that was approaching. The entire room fell silent. Only Argos's growls echoed. The surrounding researchers began to stir, not understanding what was happening. Some took a step back, not knowing what to do, while others began to whisper to each other. Anya didn't know what to do. She felt as if everything was closing in on her, as if she were the center of a story she couldn't quite understand. But there was no way to wait any longer. The feeling that there was a terrible danger lurking around kept Anya from standing still. She glanced at the mysterious man, and when their eyes met, she felt an inexplicable coldness and menace. He didn't say anything more, just stood there, as if waiting for something. And then, from within the wooden box, a faint light began to emanate, a strange green light, fading and then flaring, illuminating the space around him. The entire room seemed to be enveloped in a sudden darkness. The dim light of the candles swayed, casting long shadows on the walls. But the darkness did not come from the lack of light, but also from the presence of something inexplicable. As the blue light from the wooden box began to radiate, a cold feeling spread throughout the space. Everyone turned around, their eyes focused on the box, as if it was emitting an invisible attraction, pulling everyone into an unavoidable situation. While everyone was still bewildered, right behind the ancient bookshelf, a tall black shadow slowly appeared. At first, the black shadow was just a faint shape, but as it became clearer and clearer, it became more and more terrifying. Standing still, it was like a part of the darkness, blending into the quiet space but carrying an extremely powerful power. Anya felt a cold air run down her spine. She didn't know exactly what was happening, but her instincts told her that this wasn't a random occurrence. This was something much more dangerous. Who are you? Anya asked, her voice cold but trying to stay calm. She knew that in situations like this, fear would only make things worse. She had to keep her head clear. The man, or rather the shadow, didn't answer right away. He just stood there, part of the darkness, not moving. The light from the wooden box seemed to reflect off the confused faces of the people around him, but the shadow in front of Anya was unaffected by the light. It stood there mysterious, as if nothing could shake its presence. Argos, still standing in the same place, continued to growl, but this time the sound was hoarse and seemed to carry a deep fear. The dog not only warned of the usual danger, but also seemed to be experiencing an unprecedented sense of fear. Anya felt the unease radiating from the dog, and it made her even more anxious. She stared at the shadow, trying to analyze the situation. Although there was no specific sign, the silence and tension in the room only added to the sense of unease. Suddenly, the man spoke, but his voice was not like that of a normal human. It sounded like a deep whisper from afar, cold and carrying an invisible power that no one could resist. You will pay for interfering with secrets that do not belong to you, His voice rang out, each word carrying a torment, as if he had foreseen what would happen. This artifact is the key to opening a door that the world cannot see. But it is not something for humans to possess. And you will regret touching it. The cold feeling seemed to attack Anya. She looked at the wooden box in her hand, and then at the man. The connection between them was clearly not accidental. He knew about the box, about this artifact, and perhaps even things she had never heard of. What do you want from me? Anya tried to keep her voice steady, despite her anxiety. Why are you here? The man did not answer immediately. Instead, he slowly approached, his footsteps making no sound, as if he were part of the darkness. Everyone in the room stepped back, no one daring to step forward. All eyes were on him. When he was just a step away from Anya, the man opened a black leather bag and took out a strange object, a small wooden box, similar to the artifact Anya was holding. But this box did not have ancient characters like Anya's box, but instead had intricate drawings, as if it had a special role in an untold story. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Anya's box emitted a strange blue light, and a cold wind blew through, causing the candles in the room to sway. The blue light not only covered the entire room, but also shone on the mysterious man in front of her, causing the darkness around him to seem to disappear, leaving only an unclear figure. Argos continued to growl continuously, but then the dog suddenly stopped. It stood still, its eyes no longer anxious but full of vigilance, as if it understood that an inevitable confrontation was approaching. Anya stared at the man, the blue light from the box growing stronger and stronger, reflecting on the face of the mysterious man, but even so, she still could not see his face clearly. The whole room seemed to be filled with a terrible feeling that no one could explain. An eerie silence, like before a storm. The man stood silently, not making a single movement, only his dark eyes staring at the wooden box in Anya's hand. The blue light still flared from the box, reflecting throughout the room, like an unquenchable ghostly flame. With each passing second, the room became heavier, and the air seemed to tighten, making everyone feel suffocated. Anya felt like she was standing in the middle of an abyss, unable to see the bottom. She understood that the man in front of her was not an ordinary person. He knew too much about the relic, about the secrets that she had only just begun to discover. All the sense of security she had before now disappeared, replaced by extreme unease and anxiety. Do you know what you are doing? The man spoke, his voice resounding with a strange power, as if his words contained an invisible power. This artifact is not something someone like you can possess. Anya swallowed, trying to stay calm. She couldn't let herself fall into panic. Every word the man said made her feel like something huge was pressing down on her shoulders. She decided to face him. I don't know who you are, but I can't let you harm what I've unearthed, she said, her voice firm but her eyes filled with worry. The man just smiled coldly, not seeming annoyed by Anya's tenacity. You can call me Elian. I'm not here to attack you, Anya. But this artifact, it doesn't belong to humans. It contains power that none of us can fully understand. Anya stiffened at the sound of his name. Elian. The name made her feel a strange chill, as if it were tied to a memory she could not recall. But Elian's words were even more frightening, as if there was a warning in them. What do you want from me? Anya asked again, trying to keep her voice steady. Why are you here? Why do you want this artifact? Elian did not rush to answer. Instead, he looked down at the wooden box Anya was clutching in her hand. The blue light from the box seemed to grow stronger, radiating a sinister energy, as if it wanted to rise up and take over the space. This artifact is a key, Elian said, his voice low. A key to an ancient door, a door to secrets that humanity cannot access. It is not just an artifact, but a weapon, a tool to open things that we cannot fully understand. And there is an organization, a force that wants it. We don't know what will happen if it falls into the wrong hands. Anya felt a shiver run down her spine. Elian's words seemed to open a door to a world she had never imagined. She thought of the books and documents she had read, of lost civilizations, of ancient powers that humans could not control. So, you were part of that organization? Anya asked, trying to contain her confusion. You want this artifact? Elian smiled, but the smile held no emotion. I'm not a bad person, Anya. I am a protector. I was tasked with stopping those who did not deserve this artifact, those who have sought it for centuries. And now it is your turn. But you are not the enemy. You just cannot keep it. Anya felt her mind in turmoil. She couldn't understand what Elian said. He said he wasn't an enemy, but his actions didn't prove it. Was Elian really a guardian, or was he just trying to seize the artifact? The light from the wooden box suddenly lit up. A blue light shot out like a bolt of lightning, shining straight into the surrounding space. The people in the room all backed away, frightened, but Elian just stood there, unaffected. In fact, the light didn't seem to touch him. Argos couldn't sit still any longer. With a loud bark, the dog rushed towards Elian, as if wanting to protect Anya at all costs. But just as the dog got close, Elian just raised his hand. An invisible force made Argos stop in midair, as if frozen. Anya saw that scene and felt as if her heart stopped beating. Her beloved dog was held back by a force she could not understand. She rushed to Argos, but there was nothing she could do. Elian stood there, unmoving. And then he spoke, his voice deeper than ever. You and this dog will not be able to face what is coming. This artifact will lead the way to a great confrontation, and only those with true ability will be able to understand its power. The room remained dark, save for the brilliant blue light from Anya's wooden box illuminating every corner. But that light was no longer a symbol of discovery and mystery. It now seemed like a harbinger of impending doom. With each passing second, the tension in the room grew, as if the presence of this artifact had awakened something powerful and dangerous. Anya looked at the box in her hands, feeling its heaviness as never before. The ancient characters on its surface seemed to glow strangely now, as if they were moving, changing, revealing a secret that humans could not fully comprehend. You don't understand, Anya. Elian spoke again, his voice still cold and determined. He no longer moved, standing there like a shadow over the room. This artifact, it is a key to a door that no one, not even you, should open. It is a door to a power beyond the control of mankind. And what you have just done is the biggest mistake of your life. Anya felt her head spinning. She couldn't understand everything Elian was saying, but one thing was clear. This artifact was no ordinary archaeological item. It contained a power and energy that seemed to be inexplicable to everything she had learned in her years of research. Elian, Anya called, her voice trembling slightly. You say I don't understand, but I found it in the ground. Why is this happening? Why can't I keep it? Elian didn't answer right away. He just stood there, his eyes still on Anya, as if waiting for a special moment to reveal what he knew. Finally, he said, this artifact is part of an ancient network of power, part of something called the Dark Gate. The Dark Gate is not just a physical door, but a spiritual door, a door that can open to other realities that humans cannot understand. When this artifact is activated, it will call forth beings not of this world, uncontrollable entities, and they will flood in from outside. The artifact is the key, and we, the chosen ones, are responsible for stopping it. Anya felt her face pale at these words. She could not imagine it. The artifact she had found was not just an archaeological item. It was part of something larger, something that could cause destruction on a global scale. Are you part of this organization? Anya asked, her eyes still fixed on Elian. She didn't want to believe what she had just heard, but the truth slowly dawned on the man in front of her. Elian nodded. Yes, I'm part of the group protecting this artifact. But we're not the only ones searching for it. There are other forces, evil people, who are trying to seize this artifact to open the Dark Gate. And if we don't act soon, everything will be changed forever. The blue light from the box suddenly became so bright that it was painful. Anya had to close her eyes tightly to keep from going blind. She felt the movement of the air around her, something almost tangible, as if space was being torn apart by an invisible force. This artifact can open the Dark Gate, Elian continued, and if evil people can get their hands on it, they will be able to bring everything from other world here, bringing destruction to us all. Elian's words were like a curse, and they made Anya feel like she was being pushed into a situation she could not escape. She clutched the box, but it was no longer a discovery, no longer an archaeological item. It was a weapon, something that could tear apart this reality. So, how can I stop this? Anya asked, her eyes determined. What must I do to protect the artifact and stop those who want to unleash its power? Elian looked at her, his eyes full of pity. There is no way to do it alone. You will need help, and you will face challenges you never imagined. But the only thing I can say is you must protect the artifact, because if you don't, everything will be destroyed. The blue light from the wooden box began to flare up fiercely, no longer a faint light, but now it was like a ghostly fire, burning and spreading throughout the space. It felt like this room had been completely taken over by the box, transformed into another space, where everything was bent by a mysterious force that humans could not understand. Anya felt a terrible power from that blue flame. It was not ordinary fire, but a light with strange power, as if it came from another world, where there was no control. She could not understand why this artifact was glowing like that, but she felt that it was awakening something very dangerous. Just as Elian had warned, the dark gate was opening. "We have to go," Elian said, his voice no longer cold as before but urgent, as if he realized that they only had a little time before things got out of control. "You don't understand, Anya. This artifact is not just a key. It is also a source of power, and when activated, it will open the doors between worlds. You and I need to move immediately." But before Anya could react, the blue flame from the box suddenly burst out, emitting a strange heat. The entire room seemed to be covered in a heat wave, and the surrounding bookshelves began to shake. Books fell, pages flew through the air, creating a chaotic scene. But the strange thing was, the blue flame did not burn anything in the room. It only created an invisible energy, causing a strange movement in space, as if it was changing the structure of this world. Argos, still restrained by an invisible power from Elian, kept barking madly, as if to warn of a danger that the dog sensed. The dog jumped up, flailing at the leash, but couldn't break free. Anya saw the scene and felt a surge of panic rise inside her. She couldn't let things continue like this, and she knew she had to act immediately. "We need to put this fire out," Anya shouted, her voice losing its calmness. "Elian, please. You have to help me." Elian didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked towards the box, his eyes still fixed on the strange light that was emanating from it. He reached out, and when he made contact with the box, a powerful light erupted that forced everyone to close their eyes. "You can't put this fire out," Elian said, his voice filled with regret. "There's only one way to stop it. And that is, we have to put this artifact back where it belongs." Anya looked at him, but she didn't understand what he meant. Where to take it? Where does it belong? Elian just looked at her, not answering immediately. The light from the box was still painfully bright, and the air around her became thick, almost suffocating. But then Elian turned around and said, "You must go to the place where I once protected this artifact. It is an ancient place, where this power can be contained. A place that none of us can think of." Anya had no choice. She gripped the artifact tightly, and in that moment, the blue light from the box grew stronger, making her feel like she was being pulled into another dimension, a place where time and space no longer mattered. But just as Anya was about to act, the strangers that Elian had warned her about suddenly appeared from the darkness, surrounding the room. They were dressed in black, their faces hidden under hoods, and their eyes were cold, devoid of any emotion. Each of them had a strange weapon, as if they were prepared for battle. Elian saw them and bowed his head, as if accepting his fate. "These are the people I told you about. They want this artifact at all costs." Anya felt a wave of fear rise in her heart, but she had no time to worry. She had to protect the artifact, and if that meant confronting these people, then she would do it. While everything around her was falling into chaos, Anya felt something very strong from the artifact. It felt more than just a source of power, but a sense of protection, as if it was protecting her, as if it was leading her into a fight from which she could not retreat. The room was no longer a safe place. The blue flame from the box created a strange wall of light, not only covering the space but also causing the walls and bookshelves to shatter, creating an indescribable, chaotic picture. Everything around seemed to be torn apart. The space seemed to be disintegrating. Each passing moment brought closer to the destruction that Elian had warned about. Anya felt her body tense, not only because of the obvious threat from the strangers, but also because of the power of the artifact in her hand. It was like something with a strange attraction, both strong and dangerous, as if it did not belong to this world. The light from the box grew stronger and stronger, making her hands feel heavy, but she could not let it go, could not let it fall into the hands of those people. "Run!" Elian shouted, his voice no longer cold as before but filled with urgency. "We have to get out of here immediately." Anya didn't have time to think. She rushed towards the door, but just as she was about to open it, a loud bang sent the door flying open, blocking her escape. The strangers. no longer standing still as before, moved closer. They were dressed in black, their faces covered, and had cold, expressionless expressions. Each of them held strange weapons in their hands, not swords, but long sticks that emitted a dim light, as if made of a material Anya had never seen before. Elian didn't hesitate. He scanned the area and immediately rushed toward a nearby bookshelf, pulling Anya along. "Follow me. This artifact can't stay here much longer." The two of them rushed through the bookshelves, their steps hurried and tense. The room seemed to have become narrower, every dark corner a potential threat. Every step they took was met with resistance from the strangers, who were closing in, cutting off any escape routes. Suddenly, one of the strangers swung his weapon and slammed it into the ground, creating a small explosion. The wall beside them broke, a large chunk of it collapsing, blocking the path. Anya and Elian barely managed to jump out of the way of the wall, but immediately, two others rushed in from behind. "I won't let you stop us," Elian shouted, his voice low and powerful. He stretched out his hand and a strange light emanated from his body. The strangers stood still, the light from Elian's body making them unable to move, as if an invisible force was holding them back. "Hurry," Elian urged, pulling Anya to continue running. "This is no place to fight. We have to get to safety before it's too late." Anya felt like she was running away from an inescapable nightmare. However, she could still feel the power of the artifact in her hand, as if it was guiding them, but at the same time, it made her feel a heavy sense of guilt. She knew that these strangers would stop at nothing to get the artifact, and they would do anything to get it. After a few minutes of running through the dark corridors, they reached a large window looking out, but the street outside was blocked by other dark figures, people like the strangers they had just met in the library. The way out was no longer an option. Elian stopped, looked around, and finally stopped in front of an ancient wooden wall, pulled out a wooden bar, and opened a secret door. "Come here," Elian ordered. Anya didn't ask any more questions, just ran into the secret door. They walked through a dark passage, lit only by weak lights. Everything around her was strangely quiet, but Anya could feel the tension lingering. She knew that the chase was not over. The strangers were still chasing her, and if she couldn't stop them, everything would be destroyed. Every step in the hallway seemed to last forever. The footsteps echoed steadily. Argos's growls echoed, filling the space around her with a sense of entrapment. And then, as if everything had reached its limit, a loud noise came from behind, signaling that the pursuers were approaching. "We have to hurry," Elian urged, his face filled with determination. Anya and Elian had no time to think. The two of them rushed through the secret passage, their feet stomping on the old stairs, the wood creaking under their steps. Even though they were already deep into the temporary safe zone, the feeling of the space getting narrower and narrower and unable to escape made everything more tiring. The artifact in Anya's hand was still glowing, but it wasn't just a normal light, but a light that felt like a curse, as if it was leading them into an inescapable trap. Outside, the shadows were moving slowly. They couldn't see clearly, but they were definitely getting closer. They didn't have much time left. Anya felt her body tremble with tension and fatigue, but she couldn't stop. Suddenly, a loud noise came from behind her. The door leading to the passage had been smashed. Those shadows were no longer shadows. They were closer than ever. Elian turned around, seeing the pursuers approaching at a rapid pace. He was no longer as calm as before, but rather determined. "Anya, get ready," he shouted, pulling out a stick from his pocket. It was no ordinary stick, but a strange object, engraved with ancient characters and emitting a powerful energy. Anya didn't have time to ask any more questions. She knew that their lives now depended on immediate action. She pulled out the small gun she carried and gripped it tightly, knowing that it might not be enough to deal with the powerful forces facing her. But now nothing could stop her. At that moment, the pursuers appeared in sight. They stood in the darkness. Only their bright eyes flashed, staring at Anya and Elian. The light from the artifact grew stronger, reflecting off the faces of the strangers, making them look like creatures that did not belong to this world. They did not say a word, but only moved closer, some of them reaching out to grab their strange weapons. Elian gestured to Anya, then he swung his staff, creating a powerful beam of light. A curtain of light surrounded them, forming a temporary protective shield. The strangers stopped, as if stopped by an invisible force. But not long after, they charged again, pushing forward with increasing force. The light from Elian's staff only held them back for a short while. Anya saw an opportunity. She could not just stand there and wait. The artifact in her hand made a strange noise, as if it was calling for some kind of power. Anya understood that this was the time for her to act, even if it meant facing great danger. With me, Anya screamed, rushing out of Elian's barrier. She turned towards the approaching strangers, and with a powerful movement, she threw the wooden box into the air. The artifact flew up, emitting a bright light. Immediately, the surrounding space seemed to be torn apart. A powerful wind blew through, sweeping away everything in its path. The strangers seemed unable to stand against the powerful light. They were pushed back, and for a moment, Anya felt the pressure ease. But just as she thought she was safe, a deafening screech rang out, and the largest shadow among the strangers stepped out from the midst of the light, its eyes burning red like fire. "You can't stop," the voice rang out, not sounding human but seemingly coming from another force. "This artifact has been chosen, and no one can change its fate." Anya felt a chill run down her spine. She knew she couldn't continue fighting alone. Elian lunged forward, swinging his staff, creating a wave of energy that sent the stranger reeling back. But the stranger remained standing, his eyes burning into the ground. Elian didn't stop, continuing to fight, but it seemed his opponent was too strong. "We have to go," Elian roared, his eyes never leaving the stranger. "There's only one way to stop them. Get the artifact to safety." Anya nodded, her anxiety growing. She didn't have time to think anymore. She and Elian had to do everything they could to stop this dark force, even though they didn't know what lay ahead. Everything was in chaos. The room where Anya and Elian were trying to find a way out now looked like a battlefield. Strangers, creatures born from darkness, with eyes as red as fire, rushed in at terrifying speed, and immediately, Elian had to initiate a life-or-death confrontation. The light from his staff swept through the air, creating a powerful wave of energy, temporarily pushing back some of the enemies, but not enough to stop them completely. Anya held the artifact tightly in her hand, feeling the power growing from it. She couldn't fully understand what this artifact could do, but it seemed to be giving her a power she had never imagined. The blue light from the box was still shining brightly, reflecting on her face, and all the fear in her heart gradually disappeared. She felt a strong determination, as if this artifact was encouraging her. "We can't keep this up," Elian said, breathing heavily. He had just confronted a stranger, but he couldn't kill him right away. These dark beings were too powerful. This artifact must be brought to its proper place. Only then will it end. Anya had no time to think about what Elian said. She saw the strangers approaching with strange weapons in their hands. They couldn't run away forever, couldn't avoid forever. They would have to face them head-on. She was determined to protect the artifact, even if it meant sacrificing everything. Unexpectedly, a stranger rushed towards Anya. He swung his staff, intending to strike her. But before he could strike, another shadow appeared from the other side, pushing the stranger away. A duel broke out between the two strangers, giving Anya and Elian a chance to catch their breath. "We have to act now, there is not much time," Elian cried. He rushed forward, regaining his fighting position. "This artifact is the key to stopping everything, but if we do not act now, we will not be able to protect it." Anya had no doubts. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, gripping the artifact tightly in her hand. Suddenly, the box glowed brighter than ever, as if the artifact recognized the determination in her and Elian. The light flared up, reflecting into the eyes of the strangers, causing them to stop for a moment. But then they rushed forward with redoubled force, despite the intense light. "Don't let them get close," Elian roared. "This artifact not only has limitless power, but it is also the deciding factor for the survival of the world." One of the strangers rushed forward with unimaginable speed. Anya swung her hand up, gripping the artifact, and immediately, the light from the box flashed once more, this time so powerful that it stopped the stranger in his tracks. The entire space seemed to stop for a moment, the blue light engulfing everything. The stranger began to spin in the air as if being torn apart by an invisible force, before being flung away, disappearing into the darkness. The remaining people immediately changed their tactics. They were no longer charging blindly, but now they seemed to have realized the power of the artifact and were preparing to attack with a specific plan. But this time, Anya was ready. She gripped the artifact tightly, looking at the approaching people. We have to call off this war, Elian said, his voice low and determined. Only then will it end. Anya felt a surge of energy from the artifact, and an inexplicable power that made her feel like she could do anything. She was no longer afraid, no. Longer worried. She rushed towards the strangers, the light from the artifact shining like a tsunami, sweeping away everything in its path. The strangers could not stand, and as soon as they were engulfed by the light, they dissolved into nothingness. The room was quiet now. The darkness still surrounded her, but it was no longer a threat. Elian stood beside her, panting, and looked at Anya with respect. You did it, Elian said. The artifact is more than a key. It is a power of protection. And you are the only one who can control it. Anya stood there, breathing heavily, but a sense of relief filled her. She had done the impossible, and the evil ones could no longer touch the artifact. She realized that while the artifact's power might be dangerous, she was the one who had the right to wield it, and she would protect it to the end. The room gradually became quiet. The light from the artifact in Anya's hand had dimmed, no longer emitting the powerful energy it once did. The air around her seemed to have returned to normal, but the tension in her heart could not be easily dissipated. This artifact was not just an archaeological discovery, but part of a larger war, a force that Anya could not fully control. The strangers had been defeated, but she knew that the story was not over. Anya stood alone in the ruined room, looking at the broken pages around her, collapsed bookshelves, and the fragments of the old world. Despite her victory, she could not help but feel that something greater was still waiting for them. Elian's words still echoed in her mind. There is only one way to stop them, to bring the artifact to safety. But where was safety? Anya couldn't understand all that Elian had said, but she felt like she was at a crucial crossroads, a decision that would determine not only her fate but the fate of the world. Elian stepped towards her, his eyes filled with tension and worry. You did well, he said, his voice low. But we can't stop here. This artifact hasn't been brought to safety yet. Anya looked at the artifact in her hands, feeling its power once more, as if it was calling to her, leading her to a place she had never imagined. She couldn't stop now. She had come too far to just stop here. Then where do we go? Anya asked, her voice filled with determination. Because I can't let it fall into the hands of those forces. Elian was silent for a moment, his eyes staring into space as if he was thinking about something important. There is a place, an ancient temple, where this artifact can be safely hidden. But the road to it is not easy. We will face many more dangers, and forces we do not know will seek to take it. But if we do not go there, it will never end. Anya felt her heart beat faster. An ancient temple. But why had no one found it before? Why did she and Elian have to be the ones to take the artifact there? Are you sure that is the only option? Anya asked. Can we protect this artifact forever? Elian looked into her eyes. For the first time, Anya saw the weariness in his eyes. No one can protect this artifact forever. But if we take it to a safe place, at least we can stop the horrors it brings. The light from the artifact began to fade, and the space around them became quiet again. Fear and anxiety filled the air, but there was also a glimmer of hope in Anya's mind. She knew that no matter how dangerous it was, she had to complete this mission. She couldn't turn back, and she couldn't let the dark forces take control of the artifact. With a firm decision, Anya turned back to look at Elian. We will go, and I will protect it until we find a safe place. Elian nodded, and the two of them walked out of the ruined room, where the blue light from the artifact no longer shone. However, their hearts were still burning with determination. The artifact was more than just an archaeological item. It was the key to opening a door to another world. And the battle was never over. It had only just begun.